Hello, welcome everyone to another episode of the Virtual Ninja Show. My name is Heike, and today I have Yossi with me. Yossi, please introduce
Hi.
yourself.
Hi, Heike. My name is Yossi Hasson. I'm a product manager in Sentinel, Microsoft Sentinel, and I own the SIEM migration and SOC optimization experiences in Sentinel.
And this is actually our topic. There is a new AI-driven tool to help customers migrate from a SIEM to Microsoft Sentinel. First question is, how did you come up creating that tool? Like, what was the reason behind it? The journey of it.
Absolutely. Thanks for that question. So we see that even when customers decide that they want to migrate and onboard to Sentinel, when they come to actually do the onboarding execution or the transition process, they found out sometimes that this mountain is very high for them. They don't understand how to climb this mountain. And the main purpose of what we're doing here is to put stairs on on this mountain, make it much more guided, much more phased, much more logical and intuitive, and make sure that you will get to the top of the mountain in a fit way, fully healthy, and with a lot of appetite to continue and leveraging more values and capabilities that Sentinel and Defender XDR has.
I actually read your blog, and we will put this in the description of the video. I found it super interesting, right? But there's like two pieces. It's the data connections that the SIEM has. And then it's also, I don't know, is it called detections or analytic rules? Or like, I don't know what the term would be.
Every vendor calls it differently. We chose to use the term detections to make it much more generic, but in some places it's rules, analytic rules, use cases, queries, names are different.
Mm. And so if a customer already started to climb that mountain, is the tool still valuable for them? Or is it really, no, you start now and now we can help you. If you already are halfway through, keep going.
So I think what we're trying to do is we're trying to help customers all along the way. So starting from the onboarding part through the transition or migration, and also during the optimization phase after the migration is over. And even if you already started using Sentinel, maybe side by side with another SIEM, or even added a few third-party detections already to Sentinel, but you still feel that you don't have the full coverage in Sentinel, and you want to use what you had in Splunk or QRadar as a reference on what's the best thing to do in Sentinel, you can use the tool at any time, right? So as long as you have access to the export of the configuration from QRadar or Splunk, you can export it to us, use the tool, run the AI-based capabilities, and see the recommendations, and then you can decide if you want to adopt those recommendations or not. It's up to you. If you want to adopt them, the process is very simple. It's just mostly one click to enable, and we will show that later in the demo.
I also, read in the blog, it's not a one-day job to be done. It is a journey. So I just want to make clear for everyone, this is not just, okay, now, the tool is here, I click go, and then the migration is done. It's still a journey. And what are the prerequisites before we actually jump into the demo and have a look at the tool?
Definitely. So I'll refer to the journey concept. You're absolutely correct. The journey is, in some customers, it take even a year, even more sometimes. And we believe that what we are trying to address will cut a big chunk of this part and make it quicker, but not all of it, right? We focus mostly on the initial discovery and planning, the use cases or detections, matching, and then data connectors enablement. But there are also other parts that needs to be addressed. And also the parts that we are addressing today, we are not addressing 100% of the detections. The recommendations are focused on out-of-the-box capabilities that we have in Sentinel. And we can say clearly, those out-of-the-box capabilities will not cover 100% of your needs. But if they will cover 60, 70, 80% of your needs and will cut 70% of the time of matching and working through those detections, that's a great win for you and will help you move quicker.
So, but that brings a question to me. So, if it is the 60% that we have the out of the box detections in Sentinel, and then there's like 30, 40% left, we still show what's missing so they can then basically create the custom detections in the
Absolutely.
Defender portal. Okay.
Absolutely right. So we will have a great UI or great user experience for showing you what we recommend you to enable. But
What
it
we
will also be,
discovered,
yeah,
right?
what we discovered and what we match and what we think, yeah, that's the way to go. But if you want to go into the details of understanding what we didn't match and why, you'll be able to download a very detailed CSV file actually that includes all of the detections that you uploaded from your origin SIEM with details if we match them or not. So you will be able to use those, for your additional review or tracking of the migration process.
Mhm. Okay, so back to the prerequisites.
Yes.
What do we need?
Okay, so first you need to create a Sentinel workspace, right? Empty Sentinel workspace, no need, and to create a Sentinel workspace, you create a log analytics workspace, you enable Sentinel on top of that. That's the first requirement. Second requirement, this SIEM migration tool works only when Sentinel is part of the Defender XDR portal, right? So you need to connect the Sentinel workspace to Defender. And as we said, we are using AI-powered capabilities that leverage the security copilot capabilities that we have in Microsoft. So to be able to use the migration experience, you must have security copilot enabled in your tenant. Now, a very important point to say is that the same migration experience does not consume any SCU, security copilot compute units, right? So it doesn't cost anything in terms of using this capability to create those recommendations. It's free in terms of it doesn't use security copilot units.
Cool. And I mean, our E5 customers have Copilot now, or it's gonna be available. Is there anything about permissions? I guess you need to be obviously a admin in the Defender portal somewhat, and then also have access to the previous SIEM. I don't know.
So basically, in Sentinel, you need to be a Sentinel contributor in the workspace where you want to create the recommendations in. And of course, you have to have permissions to run the security copilot capabilities. You need to have someone that can have access to Splunk or QRadar to create the export. But that's usually the SIEM admins of Splunk or QRadar has those permissions.
Okay, perfect. So I guess, Yossi, it's time. Let's jump into the demo.
Sure, Heike, let's show you a bit of what we can do. So, first of all, I want to make sure our audience knows how to get to this new feature. So, first, go to SOC optimization. As I said, we are integrating this migration experience as part of the overall approach to help customers throughout the way, not only in the migration transition, but also ongoing optimization. So the feature was actually created inside the SOC optimization screen. And for those of you that are not familiar, the SOC optimization screen gives you recommendations that go much beyond the migration transition, recommendations around how to optimize the costs in Sentinel and how to create better coverage against threats and business risks and so on. So I highly recommend you to have a look at additional recommendations that we offer here, but let's focus on setting up your new SIEM, right? And that's a button that you have in the top right corner. In my case, I actually already have an environment that has some SIEM setup recommendations. So I don't see this button as a big link here in the middle of the screen. However, for a new customer that doesn't have SIEM setup recommendations already, this button will appear here in the middle of the screen. So very hard to
miss it. Yeah.
exactly. So you click this button, and then first of all, you'll see what are the prerequisites. We talked about them, right? Security Copilot enabled on the tenant, Security Copilot workspace operator role, that's the right permission. And we also mentioned again, the SIEM migration experience does not consume any SUs. That's very important, right? And you already see here like a hint to something we are planning in the future, which is an ability to start from scratch, but based on some, say, recommendations and guidelines that we will show you based on questions that we'll ask you. But anyway, that's coming up in the future. Let's focus on what we have today. So today we can help you migrate for your current SIEM. First thing you need to do is to tell us, of course, which SIEM you have, right? Splunk or QRadar. And for each of the vendors, there is a very clear guidance on how to create this export, how to upload the configuration data. In Splunk, it's a simple query you run in the search and the reporting app, and you create a JSON file and upload it. And in QRadar, it's actually using the Use Case Explorer, which is a UI capability on QRadar. Full details about using it are in the documentation of QRadar. And we also guide you exactly which checkboxes you need to choose to make sure that everything we need is exported to this CSV file. I'll actually continue the demo with QRadar, because that's our latest enhancement, right? The QRadar migration capabilities. We did have some Splunk migration capabilities in the past, but we've seen that a lot of QRadar customers are looking to migrate to a new SIEM, Sentinel, one of the leading SIEMs, and we really wanted to make it simpler. So that's the output of the QRadar export that you create. You upload it to here, you hit next, and in a few seconds, what we show you is a very basic analysis of what you uploaded. No recommendations here yet on what to do with it and so on, but just to make sure that you uploaded the right file, right? So maybe you exported from 3 different instances, you're not sure that this export is the right export. You'll see how many detections we identified, and if you think that's the wrong file, you can click Replace File here and upload another file.
So if there is data sources or data connections found, will they be displayed here, or is this only the detections?
In Splunk, we actually also show the number of data sources that are available. In QRadar, the export capabilities does not allow us to do that for now. However, you ask a good question, because we are looking at doing this export based on another script and not based on the Use Case Explorer in the future, that will also provide us a lot of information about the data sources that are connected and how they are connected and so on. And that will allow us to actually offer more features and more, let's say, enhanced recommendations to our customers.
Mhm.
But for now, public preview, those are the capabilities that we have.
Thank you.
A few words here around what we are going to do with this data. We're going to analyze it and prepare specific recommendations, and you can read it by yourself. Don't want to read it for you. Anyway, if you hit next, then you have to select the workspace on which you want those recommendations to be created, the Sentinel workspace, of course. In our case, in this demo environment, the workspace is called CyberSOC. And in my cases, I already run those recommendations. When I'll hit next, I'll get this notice that's saying that if I will start this new migration, that will delete my current set of recommendations. For customers that are doing the first time, of course, they won't see that screen. So I will actually not hit Start Analyzer, because it does take a few hours. So I recommend, when you're sitting to the table and trying to do this migration process, set aside some time to start the process and then come back after a few hours, even better, the next day, and then review the recommendations and go through them. Let the system give it some time to actually run and optimize the recommendations the best they are.
What does it mean it will delete your current SIEM setup recommendations? A recommendation is a recommendation, and then we have new recommendations. Is there something bad that happens here?
So the thing is that today we support only one instance of set of SIEM setup or migration recommendations per workspace, right? In the future, we might add more. But that means that if you ran a migration job that created those SIEM setup recommendations that you see here, right? We have here 88
Okay.
SIEM setup recommendations. Those and only those will be deleted if you run another migration job.
But it would come up with the same 88 unless I already configured something,
Unless you
right?
use another file,
Yes,
another
of course.
export file. Yeah. And
Yes,
that will
yes.
be mostly the case. I mean, mostly, let's say you have two different instances of QRadar. You are uploading configuration data of one, and then you say, "Oh, but I actually want to do that for the other one, not for this one." So you'll upload another one.
So yeah, it would make sense. It's nothing bad. It's only like it will take another couple of hours now to get the new recommendations the same. So yeah, okay, awesome, good.
And by the way, we have seen customers that have multiple different instances of QRadar or Splunk, and they look to migrate them to Sentinel. In many cases, they will migrate them to different workspaces in Sentinel. And if this is the case, no problem. You can run different migration job for different workspaces. In cases where customers want to consolidate or integrate different QRadar or Splunk instances to a single Sentinel workspace, that's something that we're still not supporting in terms of collecting all of those different recommendations from different instances on the same workspace. But that is something that is definitely on our backlog, and we want to let's say enhance the scale there.
Okay, cool. Thank
Okay.
you.
So before actually have all of those recommendations, right after you create this migration recommendation job, the next thing you want to go is to this page, to the SIEM setup analysis status. And this page will actually start to populate gradually right after you hit the start analyzing button. And you will see the pie chart being built here, right? So in my case, we uploaded an export that had 855 total detections. We can see that when the process completed, 739 of those were matched with Sentinel out of the box detections. Then 71 detections are actually not applicable to Sentinel, and that's a very common case. And when you talk about on-premise SIEM platforms, some of the detections there are looking at the infrastructure of the SIEM itself. Does it have enough memory? Does it have the performance is right, and so on? For Sentinel, as it is a SaaS SIEM, it doesn't matter, right? So it's not applicable. In some cases, we'll tell you, okay, some detections were not matched. We don't have a good solution for them. And you should find a solution by yourself, by your partners, and so on, by our services teams, and so on. And we also have some weird little category here that is just for the preview phase. We call it possible future match. And that actually means that our engineering, our R&D guys, they understood this origin detection, but we're still not sure what we want to recommend you, the customer, to do with it, right? So basically, practically, it means we do not have a good recommendations for you now, but we'll probably have very soon. So stay tuned, and we might have a good recommendation later on. Anyway, when the process is over, the creating of those recommendations, you will see the 3 green check marks here. And then you'll also be able to download the CSV report, right? So if you remember, you asked me, like, how can I also look at detections that were not matched, that you don't have recommendations for me what to do with? So let me open this file here.
Oh, wow, beautiful file.
It's
Come
not
on.
beautiful, but it is useful. Basically, what you'll see here is a list of all of the source detection names, including the description here and the full query, right? So different query. And in this case, we should have around 855, right? That was the number of detections. So yeah, 856 lines, including the title line, of course. And for each of those detections that you uploaded, we'll give you the migration result. Did we have a match? Is it not applicable? Not match, and so on. So just imagine to yourself how long it will take your SOC engineers to do it manually, right? To go through this list of HR detections and try to think about candidates on which out-of-the-box Sentinel analyticals should be relevant, right?
But this is so cool because now you can actually see what's not applicable, right? So you see NetBIOS name, blah blah. Like you have already a much better feeling of, oh, those are the ones that are not being migrated because you actually see them and not like who, whatever.
Absolutely. Now, for all of those that are matched, you actually don't need to go into the details in this CSV file because we provide you a much better UI experience, right? And you look at all of the SIEM setup recommendation cards, that's where it starts to become interesting, right? So let's choose, for example, Oracle database audit. So I'll go to view details and I will see that a few interesting things. First, a short explanation of why do we recommend this. And those recommendation cards are actually built according to the Sentinel Content Hub solutions, right? So basically, what we create for you when you upload those 800 detections from QRadar, we create for you a set of recommendations of analytics templates in Sentinel. And it could be hundreds. And the last thing we wanted to do is to give you a long list of hundreds of Sentinel analyticals to go and enable. And we wanted to make it more gradual and logical. And we said, okay, the best way that we can think of to make it more gradual is to group those detections, those recommendations by Sentinel Content Hub solutions, right? So each recommendation card you see here relates to a Sentinel Content Hub solution.
So Yossi, so they all show active because obviously the process has started. So if they are not active on that screen, would you have a button to say activate? Do we have, like, how does it look like?
Great point, and let me explain. And I didn't talk actually about the fact that this helps you also to track the migration process, right? And when we say active, it means that it's a new recommendation that you still
Oh.
didn't handle, right?
Oh, I thought the rule
And
is active.
no, the rule is not active. We'll talk about how we see if rules are active or not. But good point. Maybe it's a bit confusing. And
Yeah.
thanks for this feedback. It's the first time I heard that that's confusing, but every time you hear new things.
Maybe just me.
So anyway, that should help you track the process of migration. So meaning for each of those migration cards, recommendation cards, you can say, well, someone is handling that. Let's mark it as in progress. Or you can say, okay, I'm done. I completed the handling of this. And of course, mark it as incomplete. And you can say, well, it's not relevant. I don't like this recommendation. Let's dismiss it. And you can also, if you don't like it, please do click here, provide feedback, and say why you don't like it. And if you like it, even better that you'll provide feedback and say, wow, that's a great recommendation. Right? So yeah.
But I saw on your blog, if I remember correctly, Yossi, that there was a screen that showed all the matched with the names, and there was a button or something where I could actually now activate something. So I want to activate something.
We are getting there. But before that, one
Oh,
cool thing
yeah,
that I want to
yeah.
show you
Yes.
is the MITRE spider chart, right? So here in this case, we recommend to enable 3 detections, right? That's a number here, that are still not applied. And we tell you that now your current MITRE coverage is 0 in each of those vectors, initial access, filtration, collection, and so on. But if you enable those 3, each of them is relevant to a different tactic, you'll get a better MITRE coverage. And that's available in all of the different accommodations. So very important to know how it will help you improve your MITRE coverage. Now, to your question, Aika, so I like to show this one. Yeah, this is pretty rich. Okay, so first the spider chart is
Wow. Yeah.
much more interesting here, right? A lot of different tactics and how the coverage going to be looking after you enable those recommendations. And when you go to view full details and you look at the list of the detections that we recommend, so the list is much longer and richer. Right. And what you see here is the first thing that's most important is to see what's the name of the current detection, the origin detection that we analyzed. So this is the name in QRadar. And then for each of those, what is the recommended detection that we recommend to enable, the recommended detection in Sentinel. And for each of those, of course, you'll see which tactics it cover and the current status of this detection in Sentinel, if it's enabled, not in use, and in some cases even not installed, meaning it is not installed from Content Hub. And of course, the last thing is the required connectors. Do you have the right connectors enabled for this detection, and are logs flowing? If you press this little eye here, you'll see which connector is required. Yeah, so I want to show you how a specific details of a specific detection looks like, and how we can enable or edit this rule. So what you will see when you click the specific recommended detection is the full details of the analytics rule in Sentinel that we recommend you to enable. And if you go to more actions, you can also compare it with the origin, right? So what you uploaded from QRadar. So you'll see the full description, you will see the query of QRadar, and then the Sentinel query. And that's a good place to make sure that we gave you the right recommendation. And if you think that it's not the best one, maybe it's close enough, but it's not 100%.
It's better, Yossi. It's better.
Yeah, so yeah, in most cases it's better. But what I can recommend, if it's close enough, enable it and then go to the detection itself in Sentinel and edit it a bit to fit exactly what you need, right? And editing this detection is a very simple task when you use this UI, because the edit button is right here, right? So you click edit and it goes directly to the rule editing wizard, and you can change the query very quickly, change any settings that you need and so on, and come back to the recommendation card. Now, and another important point, if we go to the same recommendation, so if it was an analytic template that is still not enabled or not downloaded from Content Hub, the edit button here, instead of edit, the button would have say enable detection. And with one click, it would have downloaded the analytic template for Content Hub, create an analytic rule out of this analytic template, and enable it immediately. And if you like our recommendations and you are sure that they are great, you can even check all of them at once per, of course, use case or per Content Hub solution, and press here to enable all of them one after the other, right?
Okay.
So instead of going through 74 detections and downloading them, enable them one by one, you do it in one click. And one last thing here is the connectors, right? So I've showed you before that if the connector is not enabled, you cannot enable the detection. But if you want to quickly enable the connectors, you can enable the detection. That's where you can find the required connectors. You click the connector, and then you can either go and view it in Content Hub to download it, or if it's already enabled, you can click Open Connector page, and it will send you directly to the connector page of this connector. And you'll be able to quickly identify it, find it, and start the configuration of the connector.
But I think, Yossi, this already shows that this is not a one-click, one-day task, right? So you want to get familiar with also the current detections in your SIEM that you have right now. This has also grown over the years, and there is I don't know, and then making sure the connectors are available, and so on and so on. So, and then basically this dashboard here will help us to track it. Like if you now enable it, will the status change into something, or you have to do this now manually and say is in progress, is completed? How is it keeping track with what we're doing?
Yeah, so what will happen usually is that when I start handling a specific recommendation, I will want to mark it as in progress. And then I'll see here that the status changes to
So it's manual.
in progress. Yeah, it's manual.
Oh, okay.
Because we don't want to actually tell you that you're done before you tell us, well, I decided what I wanted to adopt of those recommendations and what not, right? It's your call. And we just help you with the process,
Okay, cool.
right? When you're done, of course, complete and you're done.
And then at some point, there should be 0 items, or maybe there's always a couple of items but then you would dismiss them, if you don't want them, you don't want to have them show up all the time.
Absolutely.
So if I dismissed something, how can I get it back? Last question from me.
So luckily you have this status filter
there you go.
here,
Thank you.
and you can always come back to something that was dismissed or completed, and you can change it back to active if you change your mind, right? Reactivate.
Cool. So Yossi, I know that there's more coming. So people should look out, obviously, on the Sentinel blog space, probably also on the What's New or the Defender news. And for now, I think last question to you, is there anything besides go try it out that you would like to ask our audience for a call to action?
The call to action to audience here of this call will be, as you said, Haika, please try it. Even if you are not planning to migrate to Sentinel today or tomorrow, in a month or in a month from now, open a Sentinel workspace in a trial mode. It's free. You don't need to pay anything to open this workspace. Export the current configuration you have in Splunk and QRadar, upload it to the tool, review the recommendations, and hopefully what you will understand is that this mountain is not so high as you imagine it is, right? There are very comfortable stairs leading you to the top of the mountain, and it should be, I'm not saying piece of cake. It's never a piece of cake to move to another SIEM, but we'll try to make it much easier for you than what you imagine it is.
Yeah.
Right. So just give it a shot, try it, and also give us feedback. Let me know what you think. Let me know what is the hardest thing for you when you are migrating to a new SIEM. What are the next things you want us to handle, and also which other SIEM platforms you want us to cover in the future.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And I think they can also use the send feedback as you showed in the product if they're already migrating. Cool.
Of course.
So thank you, Yossi. And then thanks everyone for watching. And I hope I'll see you all soon again. Bye.